Hi, I'm John with Orange ModWorks, and this is the introduction video and installation video of the Elite Alpha Trooper Pusher Breech and Short Dart modification. So this mod uses our Orange Workshop 1730 seconds aluminum barrel and as basically the raw material. To make a pusher breech with this barrel, you would have to fabricate your own chamber and pusher components, but we will be offering these components in our Orange Workshop as 3D printed components. Along with those components will be the plunger rod. We will be offering these plunger rods in the workshop for the community to use in various builds and mods. But for right now, we're going to be focusing on the barrel, chamber, and breech. Now, when you receive these breeches and any of our 3D printed parts, they will be they'll have the support material on them, and it's up to the end user to sort of finish the part. These are not drop-in components, so some hand finishing work has to go into these to get them to fit right in your blaster. And so let's get this started. So first things first, you're going to need your Elite Alpha Trooper shell basically stripped. You won't need any of the locks, you need to get rid of those. You need to get rid of your stock dart loading mechanism and the spring-loaded dart door or dart tooth that goes up under here. You need to take all of these out. So remove those components along with your screws. Set them aside. Elite Alpha Troopers are hard to come by. You want to save your stock components. And let's get started. So the first thing that needs to be done is the chamber has to be prepped for the barrel. The pusher breech will seal into the aluminum barrel, and I have one that I've already prepared here. I cut this barrel down to 5 inches. You can experiment, but these magazine-fed Elite blasters don't have the same plunger volume as something like a long shot, for instance. So your sealed barrel is going to be much shorter. You could even go shorter than this and then sleeve it with brass, just depending on what you're after as far as performance goes. With a 5-inch barrel and just cut down stock darts, I'm sticking with the stock darts purely for velocity testing. They don't really feed very reliably in this setup, but with stock darts we got a high velocity. The highest one we ever got was 178 feet per second, with the average being in the 150, 160-ish range with the 7 kg spring. You can use the 5 kg spring if you need to tone it down a bit, but the breech here, it forms the seal in this barrel similar to the long shot pusher. So to prep this, you cut it down to size, and I highly suggest taking a piece of high grit sandpaper, sort of fold it into a cone to work the inner lip of this barrel on both sides, just for the darts really. And the more smooth and beveled the breech side is, the chamber side, the longer your 3D printed breech will last if you're using one of our 3D printed breeches. So if this inner lip is sharp, it's going to abrade this printed material and your seal will degrade over time. If it's nice and smooth, these breeches will last quite a while. The test long shot from a previous video is still 100% sealed. So prepping this chamber, we need to get this barrel into here up to this surface right there. So it has to be pushed all the way in. I like to do it with a friction fit, but if you want to glue it in, you can sand this out, add the glue of your choice, preferably a slow drying glue like Goop or something, because if you use super glue, it will set up before you get this all the way in. So to make things easier in this case, since I'm going with a full friction fit, I'm going to grease the inside of this chamber slightly, because it's quite a tight fit. Just put a little bit of grease up there. Clean off your hands and insert the barrel. Now the trick that I found that works is you hold it firmly. If the little pegs are too hard to grab, you can wrap it in cloth or use a glove or something, but I'm just going to hold here and I'm going to twist and apply pressure. Also, if you sand your breeches properly, so there's no sharp edges, you won't have to worry about accidentally cutting your hand on like a sharp bit of aluminum. So this is not that easy, but it gives you a really good seal. I'm going to pull this out actually and add some more grease. Let's see. Yeah. It's a little bit more. The only thing about using grease here is you definitely want to clean it off the lip of your barrel before you start shooting darts through it. Because once you don't want a bunch of, the foam sort of absorbs that grease and the darts degrade over time. And they pick up dirt and stuff. So let's see. Alright, it's going until it gets stuck. I'm going to work it back out. Wipe off this barrel. Putting grease on the outside of the barrel and clean it off from the inside. So it's totally okay if you are having trouble with this to sand the inside of this guy here. But in the tester blasters, I did it with a friction fit, so I'm going to do it with a friction fit for this installation. Alright, okay, I'm going to go ahead and push down on the floor. Okay, here we go. I had to scoot the chair back there for a second. So now we have the barrel up even with this surface. I'm going to clean off the grease from the inside. Alright, looks good. Alright, on to the pusher itself. So this is how it interfaces. It's a pretty snug fit, and you can check to make sure that the barrel is not abrading your breech in any way. So there are no scratches out here on the surface. And so we're going to take our small O-ring. This could be the stock O-ring from your original Alpha Trooper breech, or one of the O-rings we have for sale in our web store under Workshop. I'm going to slide that guy on just like that and test fit it in the plunger body. So that's a pretty good fit. If you want a tighter fit, you can take some Teflon tape and maybe put a single layer underneath in the O-ring groove. But this one here is just fine, so I'm going to grease that up. Just with a thin coat. And see how that fits. Yeah, that's perfect. Not too tight, not too loose, but if you are just doing this on your own, you can err on the side of it being too tight. If this one is too tight, it can't hurt you. You might feel it when you prime, but that's about it. The better the seal here, the more air gets transferred into the dart. And in designing of this breech, I reduced the inner diameter of the center, so there should be a little less dead space than if you were just doing a straight brass pusher. Okay, so next, take your bolt sled, and I know this is a 3D printed prototype bolt sled. It's identical to the stock one. We're just testing materials for this particular sled, and this is an FDM sled. So if you have a printer, Alpha Troopers handle FDM printed sleds just fine. I haven't managed to break this one yet, and we're going to use it for this installation. So when you're ready to do that, you're going to take your pin and a 2mm drill bit, and I think in inches it's a 5/64. You're going to want to true up the hole in the breech. These small diameter holes sometimes sag a bit while printing, so you're going to want to true that up to fit the pin. I'm going to do this away from the table to keep the table clean. Just like that. Clean it off. And check for pin fit. Yeah, so that's going to go in. It's not going to go in that easily. I'm probably still going to have to press it on the table, but that's what you want. Without cleaning up that hole, the pin won't really go in at all. So find your hole, and what I like to do is rock it in on a hard surface. There we go. So we won't have to worry about that pin walking out during firing. So we're going to start to make sure we have all the pieces for our shell. Alright, so these pegs on the chamber are going to line up like this, and that's how it's going to sit in the blaster. Now, I have another one here that I set up earlier. This is our tester breech, and you notice I've put some tape on there. This tape holds the false barrel in place, so everything stays lined up, and it will work great, just like that. However, for this particular mod, and to demonstrate that our 17/32 barrel is the same as brass, I have here a 9/16 brass barrel, and it fits right over the aluminum, and that's an airtight seal. So if you want to buy our 17/32 for your own like home projects, keep in mind you can sleeve it in 9/16 if you want to make angel breeches or other types of sealed breeches along those lines for maybe long darts or something. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to sleeve the barrel, not to create a seal to boost my performance. If anything, this may reduce my velocity slightly. But what I want to do is not have the dart touch the inside of this. As you know, on the Elite blasters, there's like a spiral pattern in there, and I found that it does the opposite of what the straight-walled plastic tubes they used in the older blasters did. So with the older straight-walled ones, if a dart, you could put like your false barrel on a long strike or something, and it would keep the dart straight. With these twisted ones, the darts, if they come into contact, it sort of flings them off at a crazy angle. So when I was doing accuracy testing with this setup right here, with this breech, like that, it was atrocious. It was terrible with short darts, where normally you see great accuracy with short darts because the weight distribution is better. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to sleeve it in some good old 9/16, just like that, and I'm going to put it up like that. So we have the brass going to the end, protecting the dart from coming into contact with that. Now, if you don't want a proper sleeve, you could probably use larger brass and, neck up here and go to something larger. But for this mod, we're going to experiment a little. Oh, and as you'll notice, the chamber, it fits the orange barrel just fine, just like that. Basically exactly as the stock version would. So we're going to sleeve that, and then that. There we go. And you'll notice the brass does not extend out. I really don't like having metal barrels protrude past the gun because it's kind of a protrude past the muzzle because it's kind of a safety hazard. Alright, so and then from here we're going to put everything together just like you would a normal Elite Alpha Trooper, making sure the bolt sleds and its grooves and all that. We're going to slide on the plunger body with the plunger rod. We have a 7 kilogram spring here, and our stage 1 trigger catch. Now, we don't have the stage 1 kits anymore, so you won't be able to get this metal part. However, I have done a lot of experimentation with the plastic catch, and it seems to hold up just fine. However, I definitely recommend getting one of our double strength trigger catch springs, or doubling up with something from a clicky pen or a spring of similar diameter, but you definitely want a stronger catch spring when you're using the 7 kg spring. So, and then we're going to make sure that our bolt sled is in front, or is behind this hook. That's the worst thing you can do with an Alpha Trooper, is you get everything put together and then you can't prime. So make sure this hook is in front of the bolt sled. I'm going to pop that in, put this guard on. I guess it's kind of like a heat shield. And I'm leaving oh, here's the jam door. So, no locks. I think we are ready to test fire. So when you're closing this back up, your shell might not go together because the bolt sled's out of its rails. And to get it back in, you can pull in the jam door, and that hooks onto the bolt sled and lets you close your blaster a little more easily. Always double check that your magazine release is working. Alright, press it all down, spring goes in. And 7 kilograms is probably the maximum spring weight I would use in an Alpha Trooper, or any blaster that has this metal priming rod. We've experimented with the stronger springs and have just straight bent these metal rods. So you definitely don't want to do that, especially on a blaster like this that is very difficult to replace. So I'm going to put in a few of the screws, some of the key screws. Just to test fire this blaster. I'm not going to put in all of the screws, just a couple. Remember, short screws are usually going to be on the top. And then the 2 very short screws go here and here underneath this. Okay, so there it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to prime and fire here because there's no way for me to really, well, maybe I can plug that with my finger, but now when you get to this stage, you want to make sure everything is smooth. You don't want to feel any grinding, anything weird and out of place. I know a lot of people like to leave the jam doors out because it's just easier to see what's going on at all times, especially with short darts. And alright, everything looks good. I'm going to see if I can plug this with my finger just to reduce the shock of the dry fire. Alright. So let's take it out to the chronograph and give it a test shot. Oh, there we go. It's got some seal to it. It's hard to demonstrate the seal when the barrel is cut off inside, but I'll do what I can. Wow. Now I'm not quite able to plug that up. Oh well. So there it is. It's pretty straightforward, probably a little bit simpler than the long shot, and I'll see you out by the chronograph. Okay, here we are at the chronograph with the Elite Alpha Trooper and Pusher Breech. And here I just have cut down stock streamline Elite darts. And just a note about the magazines, you'll notice there's a space here between the dart and the edge of the magazine. That kind of hurts feeding reliability. If you're modding these, you can take some hot glue or paper or plastic and sort of build this up here so it gives the dart something to ride on before entering the chamber. Just a tip. But all pusher breeches are much more reliable with these rounded solid tipped darts, but for sake of just chronograph data, we're sticking with stock darts because they're sort of the standard. All right. First shot. 169.2. Remember, this is with a 7 kilogram spring. 171.5. Oh, a new record, 179.3. Previously, we've hit 178. Okay. Oh, 182.3. And that was our last shot. Alright, so that is an Elite Alpha Trooper with a 3D printed pusher breech from the Orange Workshop. Thanks for watching.